I really have no reason why, other than I just felt like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Nothing. I have nothing for this. I'm sorry. I don't even know why. It's just Ferris Bueller's Day Off. We are back. My book of favorite quotes. 30-day transformation to becoming a better you. Quote number 7. This is not quote number 7, but on the front it says, "Far from what I once was, but not yet what I'm going to be." We grooving, man. We at quote number 7. Quote number 7. My book of favorite quotes. Amazon.com, LifeStrategyMeetup.com. Look, my gear, you gotta apologize for my gear tonight. It's a little chilly out here, so I'm kind of gorilla with my hoodie and my long sleeve. It's been a long day, and I wanted to get this video in before I hit the hay. So a quick review. I appreciate all the comments, and the views and the shares and the likes on the videos. Yeah, man. Let's just keep growing. Let's keep evolving. Let's keep getting better. Let's keep making mistakes. Let's keep making new mistakes. Let's learn from them. And let's keep evolving. Let's keep growing. I'm not going to review the first 6. We're just going to get right into number 7. Number 7. Quote number 7 is by Keith Ferrazzii. He's got a book, actually, that I just ordered. You should check out. It's called Never Eat Alone. I'm excited to start reading that. Keith Ferrazzii. Number 7. Don't be afraid of sharing your vulnerabilities. Vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It makes you accessible. Know that your vulnerability can be your strength. Okay, I'm going to read that again. Number 7. Don't be afraid of sharing your vulnerabilities. Vulnerability doesn't make you weak, it makes you accessible. Know that your vulnerability can be your strength. This quote got to the core of what I thought it was to be a man. I grew up believing it was a sign of weakness for a man to show vulnerability, or to cry, or to be afraid. My father passed away when I was 19 years old, and during that time, I only saw him cry twice. Once when my brother was in some legal trouble, and the other was when he was in the hospital shortly before he died. As a boy, the example taught me that men don't cry. We don't show vulnerability. We must exude a position of strength at all times. So that's what I tried to do. As I found myself suppressing my feelings, when they did come out, they would come out in the form of rage, like a volcanic eruption from being held under so long. Believe it or not, taking acting classes taught me otherwise. It taught me how to feel again. It taught me the difference between being vulnerable and being a victim. Being vulnerable is strong. Being a victim is weak. Most of us humans feel a whole range of emotions from love to hate and everything in between. Being vulnerable is expressing love, fear, compassion. Being a victim is expressing powerlessness, allowing circumstances to control you. It is what we do in the moment that determines what the outcome will be. Do I feel fear and overcome it to achieve, or do I feel fear and be overwhelmed by it, becoming a victim? I've worked really hard in becoming better at sharing my vulnerabilities. What scares me, what I'm insecure about, admitting mistakes, asking for help and forgiveness. One example I will give is from my personal relationships. I was dating a woman, and like typical man behavior, was scared to express to her how I really felt. The fear being, what if she doesn't reciprocate? The rejection and the pain it could cause. So I didn't. I believe looking back, it is what caused the relationship to fizzle out. When I accepted that in order for me to receive what I want, I needed to give it first, I thought about her and our relationship. The hard truth was, I felt I was in love with her and was too afraid to tell her. So I decided to change my regret into an opportunity. I reached out to her because I wanted to tell her how I truly felt at that time, also because sometimes we personalize experiences. I didn't want her feeling unworthy of love because of my inability to say it. So I took her out to lunch and after a few pleasantries told her the exact moment when I wanted to tell her I loved her and how I allowed my fear to block me from communicating it. She began to tear up and said she felt the same way too and was afraid to tell me how she felt as well. It was really an eye-opener. You had two people in love and afraid to say it. She thanked me for telling her and I thanked her for giving me the opportunity to share. Our relationship was over at that point, but we both could move on and be better for the next experience. For that, I am forever grateful. I realize the more open I am about my feelings, the more others are willing to share theirs. I call it intimate sharing, wherein I initiate the openness of my journey, pitfalls, mistakes, successes, and in turn, 98% of the time, the other person will share theirs. It's a beautiful thing to feel and know that you will be felt and that you are not alone in your feelings. If you are open about them, most people will reciprocate. Try the next time you are in a position to express your vulnerability or on the receiving end of it. Do it. Be a sounding board for someone to communicate theirs or have the courage to communicate yours. It will take your relationships to much deeper levels. You will not regret it. Quote number 7. Don't be afraid of sharing your vulnerabilities. Vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It makes you accessible. Know that your vulnerability can be your strength. Let's reflect on that. Yeah. Historically, men, we're not very good at sharing how we feel, right? From the time that we were little boys, don't cry. What you crying for? Don't be a punk. Stop being a sissy. Just we weren't really allowed to cry beyond a certain age. It was man up, buck up, suck it up. You just didn't cry. And if you got caught crying, you was soft. You was a sucker. You know what I mean? So we weren't really taught how to emote. And I think that's pretty general for men across the board, but I know especially for men of color. We've never really been taught how to feel. Right? Once in a house, in your household, and then out on the streets, dealing with that energy out there, you can't get caught, crying or showing any kind of weakness because there's predators out there. They'll take advantage of you. So you had to learn to hold it in. But the drawback of holding it in is when it does come out, and it's coming out, like I read, it was coming out like a volcanic eruption. Like, it was like shaking up a soda and then twisting the top off and it fizzes everywhere. And it was uncontrollable. So my anger, when I allowed myself, well, not even I allowed myself, when I couldn't control holding it in anymore, it was volcanic. It was, oh my goodness. Like I really needed to learn a middle gear, right? So it was either I wouldn't do anything or I'm letting it all hang out. And neither one was healthy. But I got it from, I have 3 older brothers and my father. So I have 4 men that are older that I looked up to, and that was kind of the norm. Like, you just didn't cry. I never saw my dad cry. Like I mentioned, I saw him cry twice my whole life, and he died when I was 19. So right before he passed away, one of my brothers was in some trouble, and my dad came home and he broke down. He cried because he felt like he should have done something to help my brother, and it shocked me. Like, I was floored, and I've seen my dad go through a lot of stuff, and never saw a reaction like that. Like, when his mom died, didn't cry. I saw him break his jaw. So I saw him do a lot. He went to jail. I never, nothing until that time, and then shortly before he actually died of the heart attack, he was in the hospital for like a minor heart attack, if you can call any heart attack minor. And he was sitting there. Me and my brothers went to go visit him, and he was sitting in the bed, and he started pressing the button for the nurse to come, and started rubbing underneath his heart, and I saw a tear come down his face. And it freaked me out, like so much so that I started cursing out the nurses and cursing up a storm, because I knew for him to be crying, he must have really been in pain. And that was my example, so I tried to emulate that. And it wasn't really healthy. Like, it wasn't really until I started to take acting classes that I learned that it was okay to feel. So I was really bottled up in my relationships, in my friendships, like, wasn't trying to let anything hurt, to have to express any kind of vulnerability. But, acting class and acting gave me an excuse, because I could say, oh, I'm doing it because of acting. But little did I know, it was teaching me how to feel in real life. And my acting teacher taught me the difference between being vulnerable and being a victim. And she would give an example. She'd go, you've seen Denzel in movies, you've seen him cry. Does he look weak to you? And I'll go, no, he looks strong. You've seen Will Smith cry in movies. Does he look weak to you? And I would say no. She goes, because they're not victims. It's okay to cry when you're in pain, right? It's a natural body response to release when you're upset. Some people cry when they're happy. Like, it's a natural thing, and it really gave me permission to start feeling again. And I feel like it saved my life. I can only imagine to continue living my life the way I was, just angry, holding that kind of resentment and anger and frustration in for some of the things that were happening in my life. So even what I'm doing now with the personal development stuff and the life coaching, is primarily women that reach out to me. Some guys on the low, but I just feel like as men, if we can learn to be more vulnerable, and it don't, it doesn't, sometimes it includes crime, but primarily it's just putting our armor down, taking our armor off, and showing the people that matter most to us that we can be compassionate, that we can be sympathetic, that we can empathize, that we can cry if necessary, and know that it's okay. That's really important for our community, primarily speaking as a man of color. We got to teach our boys that it's okay to cry, right? We're not teaching them to whine and be victims, but if you're in pain and you're upset or you're hurting, it's okay to express that through tears or through conversation or through communication, or to go to your brother or your friend and say, you hurt me, and not worry about somebody laughing or snickering. It's like, share your vulnerabilities, share your insecurities, and those people that laugh, get them out of your life. They're fake anyway. Like, who wants those type of people in your life that are gonna laugh when you're being vulnerable? Get those fake relationships out of your life. The people that matter will be open to it, and they'll respond in kind because they'll see the humanity in you, and you'll be able to see the humanity in them. And I hope this makes sense. Women naturally more emotional, you know, think from their heart more. So it's just men, you know, we have to work on, that's a muscle that we have to develop. It's not something that is instinctive, and maybe it is, but it gets worked out of us because we get told not to cry so much and manly, and you know what I mean. So maybe it is instinctive, and we lose it through our childhood because we get told over and over and over by society, by, you know, our whatever male example that you have, either verbally or non-verbally, that it's not okay to emote. And I mentioned that I felt like it cost me a relationship because I was afraid to be vulnerable. I was afraid to express how I felt, right? For fear, rejection, what if it's not reciprocated? So I was waiting and hoping she would say it first, but then come to find out she was feeling the same thing. So I'm not saying it's exclusive to men, but it's something, you know, as a man, I know as a species we need to work that thing out in our community, men across the board, but primarily men of color, and within our family unit, we have to be able to learn how to express ourselves emotionally through vulnerability. Right? It's actually courage, it's actually strength to be vulnerable with your children, with your woman, with your family, with your mom, with your siblings. Okay? Quote number 7. Don't be afraid of sharing your vulnerabilities. Vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It makes you accessible. Know that your vulnerability can be your strength. Okay? I'm going to keep this one short tonight. Quote number 7 from my book of favorite quotes, 30-Day Transformation to Becoming a Better You. As always, I appreciate you guys taking this journey with me. And yeah, I hope everybody has a great week. And work on those vulnerabilities. You know, even if you not comfortable verbalizing them, you know, maybe just do it. Sometimes I will just get in the mirror and talk to myself about what I didn't like about myself, or my shortcomings, or my insecurities, or you know, anger that I was holding on to, or my inability to express something, or you know what I mean? Like, I would have that conversation with myself until I got confident enough to have it with somebody else. You know, or maybe take an acting class. That's what I did. It really helped me a lot. It's your boy, Brooklyn Mclinn. Peace.